So we know there's a lot of questions about Maximo 8, which is why we are so pleased to be talking with our fabulous Amy Tatum, Vice President and Technical Director of Starboard Consulting, and also our lead presenter for our Coffee Chat series. Amy has over 25 years of experience as an engineer and technology consultant and managed countless implementations and Maximo projects. She's also served, as I said, as our featured host and presenter for the Coffee Chat series. Amy, thank you so much for joining us and leading today's session.
All right, thanks, Alex. I appreciate it. It's good to be back, and thank you, everyone, for joining us. As Alex said, I'm a Vice President and Technical Director at Starboard. Starboard is an IBM Maximo business partner, and Maximo is our only focus. So we are 100% Maximo implementing company, and have been doing that for quite a while. We're here in the final one of our series talking about Maximo 8. So we started back in April with just an overview of Maximo 8 and the Maximo Application Suite, also known as MAS. That one was with Kim Woodbury. And then last month, we were joined by Lisa Stuckless to talk a little bit about the licensing. And today, I'm happy to say that we have Steve Hauptman with us. And Steve is going to give us a little bit of a deeper dive into some of the technical components of Maximo. So Steve, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you. This is great. Very excited.
All right. So as Alex said, I've been working in Maximo for quite a while now, a little over 20 years. I think you've got a little bit of a history with Maximo as well. Give us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I started with Maximo back in 1996, just as the 3.x version, I can't remember, I think it was 3.2 at the time, was going out the door. Our first SQL Server version, very exciting, right? And I've managed my way or meandered my way through as a developer on the client server side. Then I watched us move technology the first time over to the Java-based coding, did some more development over there, then took on more of a management role as applications manager, as a systems framework manager. I managed and did the release management for Scheduler and our Asset Health Insights products. And now I'm here. Talking to folks like you and trying to be a little bit looking externally and helping people learn about mass and the shift in technology, and then also taking that information back for feedback and helping the team internally to change appropriately.
Right. Well, great. I'm just a couple years behind you. I think I started in '98 with my first Maximo implementation. Again, yeah, back in the 3.02, I think was the first one I did. But I've watched the product grow through the years, and it's pretty interesting. When we put this graphic together, I really hadn't thought about it in these terms until I saw this picture, and it really does speak to the progression of Maximo over the years. The fact that it's been around for 35 years is pretty amazing, and the fact that it's been able to grow and adjust to the technology over time and just kind of shift with the needs of the industries that it supports and the architecture behind it is pretty cool. So I don't know. I just thought this was a neat picture history of the product.
Yeah, it does. It shows how we've kind of kept up with the times, but probably causing a lot of grief along the way.
Yeah, kind of. I joke because 411 was such an incredibly stable platform, and I used to jokingly refer to 5 as kind of the awkward teenager stage. Didn't really have the legs yet, but was a move in the right direction. And then, of course, as it's progressed to 6 and 7 and turned back into a really solid, stable platform. And now, of course, we've got a big shift on our hands with the move over to Mass 8, which is what we're going to talk about today. So kind of fun stuff.
Absolutely. It has been a lot of fun, actually.
But I think before we dive in, we were going to do a quick poll. So Alex, you want to run that for us?
Yes, thanks, Amy. Thanks, Steve. So we just wanted to ask real quick for our audience, is your organization using containerized systems today? And Steve and Amy can explain what that is if you if you don't know. I am not the technical director.
We got a lot of not sures on this one. So.
All right. We'll go ahead and close our poll. You're welcome to add your feedback or questions in the chat window. So a lot of not sures and a lot of no's.
All right. So, with those not sures, I think we wanted to, 30 minutes isn't a lot of time to go into a lot of details of Mass 8. There are a lot of things, though, that are the same. So we want to talk about those a little bit. We want to talk about some of the things that changed maybe a little bit, but aren't dramatic changes, and then what's new. So when you get out of the session this afternoon, hopefully at least you can look back and kind of understand what's the same, what's different, and what's just brand new stuff that we've all got to learn. So just when we thought we were all going to be experts at this, it's going to change just enough to keep us on our toes. So what is the same? There's a lot of things that are the same, right, Steve? So work order is still a work order. What else can we look forward to?
Yeah, well, work orders are work orders, purchase orders are purchase orders. I mean, really, all of the end user features are exactly as they have been before. Often at this point, this is when people ask me about their enhancement requests. So it's exactly the same as it was before, for better or for worse. You got all the same functionality. I know Amy mentioned the 5x little bridge that we had between 4 and 6. I would say, and on that case, we actually lost a bit of functionality during that time frame. We didn't lose any functionality here. Everything is still in place. There are a couple of things that have changed. We'll get to those in a few slides, but everything you were able to do yesterday, you'll be able to do tomorrow. And from an end user standpoint, their biggest pain point will be the new skin, as you see here. Right, that little learning curve, or sometimes not so little, around where the fields are. Well, the fields are basically in the same place. Some of the toolbar icons and that kind of thing have shifted, as you can see from the screen. But all of the feature functions that you had before are still in place. All the abilities to do customizations, configurations, integrations, all the shins, you'll be able to continue to use. They're all still there. So everything else is basically the same.
Okay.
Happy to say.
And I think that configuration ability is an important one to point out, because that is still the same. So where we're able to do DB configs and add fields and configure the UI and add scripts and things like that, all of that is still in place, which also means from an upgrade perspective, it'll all stay in place. So for those clients that are already on a 7.6.1 environment or something moving into Mass, you won't have to re-implement. We can bring a lot of that forward, right?
That's right. Automation scripting, like you said, database configure, your security groups, domains, all that stuff is still here. It still does what it did before.
Good.
All in place. Application designer as well, of course.
Okay, that's comforting. So let's talk a little bit maybe about what's not quite the same.
Right. So one of the things, into moving into the suite, right? It's usually we have Maximo built and then we add some new application, or we build a new industry solution onto the Maximo we've done today, right? Now we've kind of gone a little bit in a different direction. We have these big, broader applications like Assist, Safety, that kind of thing. And Manage is now, joined with those things. And so in doing that, the users now exist in the application suite level. And now I told you a lot of things didn't change. And yes, there's still a user application, there's still a security groups application. But similar to an LDAP situation, your adding and removing of users will happen at the suite level. And then those users will get propagated into Manage, and then you can do additional things with them in Manage, like assign their security groups, or there's additional fields. I don't memorize all the fields at the moment, but because some of the fields we did put into the Mass side to make it easier, things like email and address and phone numbers, stuff of that nature, right? So that's all in the Manage side, but on the Mass side, and you would always go edit it there, and then it would propagate itself over to Manage. So that's one change. Similar, again, related, LDAP, if you were doing LDAP integration, now your LDAP integration is with Mass, with the application suite. And then it just flows all the way through. So the users from your LDAP repository end up in the application suite. The application suite then sends them to Manage, and everybody's happy. The group synchronization, same thing. In 8.4, we did not surface the groups in the UI in the application suite, but they are there under the covers. So if you were doing group synchronization from LDAP, you would synchronize them to mass, and those groups would be populated and managed, and the members as well, and all that stuff. So that's all still there. You just need to move the fire hose out of the connection to Maximo to EAM and then into mass, and then the rest is supposed to kind of go through. So that's one thing. The other piece that's changed a bit is around the integration framework, and this is mostly driven by the move to Openshift in some ways, and the move to the suite in other ways, and keeping things sort of secure in our new world, right? We're always worried about cybersecurity and that kind of thing. So we have essentially deprecated RMI integration. I think you can probably make it work, but we don't suggest it. We do actually still use RMI to talk between the classic screens of Maximo and the server behind it. So it's not like gone, but making it work through the Openshift walls and stuff is a little more difficult. And so I would recommend using REST if people are interested or find themselves in that area. We have a great mass IBM managed playbook for the upgrade purposes, right? And in there is a link to a video. Some of you might know Anamitra. He created a great video that walks you through how you would take an RMI integration and convert it to REST. So that if anybody's interested, you can take a look at that. It's a Google Manage upgrade, and you'll find our playbook. A lot of good information in there. So that's one thing. Another thing that's changed now as we move into Openshift. Openshift, one of the things it does is cluster management. And with WAS-ND and with WebLogic, they do cluster management. So we don't really need a cluster manager inside a cluster manager. So we've moved to Liberty as our server. The downside to doing that means we lose a lot of the JMS processing, the freebie SI bus that one would get. And so it's a matter of finding a substitute. So there's a few things in there. One is, and you can do this in 7612, you can use Kafka, which you can get the free version or you can get the paid supported version. And I think there's a whole 4 or 5 things in between. I think Confluent is the place that supports that. I think I'm drawing that out. But that's one option. Another option is really any other JMS provider, IBM MQ or whatnot. And we here, I've told you I go both ways now. I know I've brought a lot of this back to the mass team and played, client advocate. And so we've been researching what's available in Liberty from a JMS provider. What are other, like ActiveMQ was another one we were researching. So there's a lot of them out there. Some of them are open source, some of them are free, some of them cost money. They run the gamut. Yep. And we're working out what's the best way to help people move forward, in that and not have yet one more thing to install. So yes, we are aware. And the last bit of the changes to the integration is, again, having to do with authentication and that kind of thing. Is we're basically stopping the ability to pass in a username and password as a connection, and instead to use the API key. You can play with the API keys a bit. Again, in 7612, they're in the admin work center. Is a way to generate the API key. The API key can be associated with a user, so you can control the security groups associated with that user, and therefore what that API key, anybody with that API key can do. But that's one other change that happened there, and I think that pretty much covers what changed a little.
A little. Besides the name, of course.
Yes, exactly.
So Maximo, as we all knew and love it as an EAM, is now managed, which is part of that larger application.
Yes. Well, you try to figure out the manage part. So
the name. So we've used the API key on some other 761 implementations, and that works pretty well. We haven't had any issues with that. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah. All right. So our next topic then is what's new.
Yes.
And there's lots to talk about here, right?
Yeah. So what's new? So what's new is that whole under the cover architecture thing, right? That is hidden from just about everybody at your company, right? And it's this move to Openshift, containerization, cloud computing. You want to call it whatever you want to call it. It's kind of the same thing, right? And it's the big thing we get here, I think, is in automation. Automation. There's a chart I think we're going to see in a couple of minutes that shows a progression. What is it? Denial, anger. No, wait, that's something else. No, it's our build up to automation,
it's 12
right?
steps, right? 12 steps.
And we're just at the very beginning of our journey now of automating. And one of the nice things now is we've replaced the install and configure tools with an Openshift mass UI based operator automation of the deployments. So you can go in and you say, I want manage. I want to pick this industry solution, these 2 languages. I want 2 UI pods. I want a cron pod. I want a report pod. But with repod is a new JVM. Right, but just similar to like you did before. Here's where my customization exists. Please include those. Right, and you just check them off, hit the button, and off it goes to go figure out how to get all that together. And you want to change that, go back to that screen, make some other changes, say do it again, and it will redeploy stuff. Right? No, uninstall is not available yet.
I was going to ask.
Yes, I've done this a couple of times. But basically it's around that automation, right? What we want to do eventually, though, is get to the point where the system is monitoring itself and figuring out, there's a pod going bad, take the pod down, spin up a new pod. Or, hey, it seems like it must be the busy season for you. You've got a lot of people on. Let me spin up some extra UI pods. Hey, it looks like that busy season is over. We got a little thing. No one's using much effort here. Let me spin down some of those pods, right? So it's a journey, and it's a journey to get there. And so, in fact, I had a conversation about exactly that this morning with some of the folks here. We're certainly already looking into it, but don't expect it in the next month or two. But that's where Openshift is really going to help us, right? In allowing the IT departments out there a bit to worry about other things, right? Worry about that report customization you wanted, or whatever other things, right, that are more pertinent to the business, and let the system run itself, right? And then, as I mentioned a little earlier, right, you've got the top set of stuff, which is now there's all these other things you can do with your data and using manage and get all this other APM type related items or other AI type stuff in place to help you with your work. And I know you went through the app points and know that now you don't have to actually buy something else, right? You just decide if you want to use it. I also will indicate that health, which is, I guess, the third thing over, right, is really actually the old Asset Health Insights in a lot of ways, and it actually runs on top of manage. Even though this diagram doesn't show it that way,
right.
It will be embedded with the managed stuff, and you'll have access to that data and everything else from within manage if you're trying to put something on a work order or that kind of thing. So that's embedded as well. So that's the big new thing.
Yeah, it's a lot that's new. I know as a business partner, we've got some preliminary access and have been, installing demo environments and checking things out. It's all brand new. It's been out for 2 weeks now. So it's been that long. And manage, as you mentioned, includes the industry solutions. So we've got all of those pieces and parts that are still in place. But I think that ability to grow into some of these other products within the suite is exciting. I mean, that's a lot of stuff that we've talked with clients about for a long, long time, and the fact that it took another install and took additional licensing and always seemed like such a big lift and a big project, even just to do a pilot or try things out. Was always a bit of a detractor to any sort of implementation. So I think having everything in the suite where you can pilot more easily is going to be a big plus for the folks that might be looking to dip their toe in the water just a little bit. So
yeah, I agree. And I've lately been playing a lot with Assist. I think that's really cool stuff.
Yeah. So those were our 3 takeaways. Let's kind of flip over and see what kind of questions we've got from the audience. So I see there's one here about this screen editor staying the same, and I think we talked about that earlier. That would be the application designer, and that's still there, still working as it was, right?
Yeah.
What about the work centers? Now there are different screens that and I know there's been a little bit of edit capability that was, introduced in that, and then I think it was going to go away. Are they back? Are they still the same?
So the work centers were written with a technology called Polymer that Google put out there, and it worked pretty good. And one of the things that it brought that was nice, it gave us the ability to be stateless in our UI. We could, if a server went down and you were using the UI, you wouldn't lose what you were doing. You could continue doing what you were doing. But there were other downsides to doing that, and we have its brother, I guess, sister, what we call the Maximo Application Framework. It's based on React. Upper React is IBM's Carbon. And a lot of everything in the suite is basically on top of Carbon. Manage now is introducing some of this Maximo Application Framework stuff, which is built more. Well, on one hand, it's a lot like the Polymer stuff, the Lightning, the work centers, and its statelessness and its ability to have all kinds of graphics and all kinds of stuff like that. On the other side, it's been constructed in a way that's more similar to Classic, that will let you do more customizations, more configurations, and have them upgradable and all that kind of stuff. Right now, we're focusing on getting some applications out there. There's a couple of there's a mobile set of applications that exist that's built on this stuff. You can actually download it for 7612, I think. At this point, there's also the Assist. Assist has a mobile app that's based on the same architecture, the same framework. And we're concentrating on a lot of those applications, instead of the customization tooling. But it's basically the same kind of underneath stuff. So if somebody went into a notepad editor or something and just modified it to their heart's content, it's easier to read. It's easier than the Classic stuff. It's much better, much more structured. And I don't know, you might want to think of having a coffee chat around just that, because I know that can be interested. But it's pretty powerful, and it has a whole revisioning, a whole slew of stuff behind it, behind the scenes that work with it, and will be, I think, eventually when it all comes together, it will put application designer to shame, I think.
Well, good. All right. Well, an application designer put the old JSP edits to shame, so it's all
That's
good.
right. That's right. That's right.
Oh.
There's no turning back now.
No. So looking at some other questions, we've got some clients said they're considering an upgrade to Mass in 2022. So what should they be doing now to prepare for that upcoming project?
I would say start getting to learn Openshift. That's sort of the biggest piece here, right? To learn, I think. By the time you upgrade, and which I think we all have worked out some additional kinks, I think the Mass team, the Suite team that's building that core set and the core install, they've been steadily improving since the 8.0 version, right? So they've had a couple of iterations now, and they continue to go down that path. And the EAM crew, of course, brings some new and exciting opportunities, and so we've been working with them as well, to get those things straightened out a little bit, right? But learning OpenShift, getting familiar with how that's structured and how that works, I think that's the most important part, right? Once you get that going, most of the things are, like I said, the deployment of Manage, right? It's a couple of URL pages, right? I mean, a couple of web pages where you just go in, you check the check boxes, you fill in the basic information, and it goes behind the scene and does its thing, right? We're working on some of the how do I handle service stability, what happens when things go wrong part, which, how often does that happen? Right? So there's all those bits and pieces. But I think, knowing OpenShift, so when somebody says, well, go check the YAML, or, what does the CR say? And you're not sitting there scratching your head going, the what? The who? A container? Right? I think that's probably the most, because like I said, the product itself, the feature functions, even the configuration and customizations that you're all familiar with, that's all still there. It's all doing the same thing the same way.
Right. Okay. What about WebLogic? Is that still supported?
Again, going forward, we're Liberty. Everything is Liberty. But it's all done behind the scenes. It's not that suddenly. I don't think you have to learn. I would say you have to learn more about OpenShift than you have to learn about Liberty. Right? It's kind of happening there. The 7.6 versions will still obviously have run on WebLogic, right, and do whatever, and you can call into support. Whatever problems are happening. But the new 8X stuff, right, is all going to be Liberty based.
Right. Is there an environment, a demo environment out yet?
There isn't, I don't think. I've been in some conversations about getting those set up and having environments for people to play in. Right now, I know our support team has a preview site up for 7.6, right? So I'm talking to them about possibly standing up an 8X1, and also the product managers, the Kim Woodbury's, the Lisa Stuckles's, those folks, right? They've been also been working on standing up some sites for folks to use, because it's our clients, it's our business partners, it's our sellers. I mean, everybody wants to have the access to something like this, so we're aware. We just can't stand them up that fast.
Yeah.
With just a few of us trying to do it and get the actual product together.
Yeah, and there's the technical aspect of that, and I mean, from a front end perspective, as we said, some things haven't changed. So if you're just looking for a demo of Maximo or Manage now and what it can do, even the old 7612 demo sites will get you the features and functions.
Pretty much.
And those didn't have really, you couldn't get into WebSphere on those demo sites anyway. So some of this mass piece with the Openshift and everything is a different environment as far as letting people get in and play with it. So I know as business partners, we've had some access to that and have been able to get in, but from a client-facing kind of customer side, that'll be a little longer to come by.
It's only one person. You can't be installing the same time I'm installing.
Right, exactly.
It has its challenges for sure.
That does. So going back to the chat here. So what will happen to the users who are on traditional setup? Do we need to shift to Red Hat OpenShift deploy app like WAS and other apps as a container? If we're on Windows today, will it be a huge challenge? I think that kind of goes back to your preparation of starting to get to know OpenShift and all of that, because that is going to be the move, right?
Yeah. Getting to the Windows piece of this, right? This has been something that's been of interest to us as well. And we brought it to the Red Hat team. But in the meantime, you don't have to go out and buy Linux licenses to run this thing, right? There's a lot of entitlement that comes with it. OpenShift itself has what they call the Red Hat Core Operating System. That's part of it. And that thing will run on bare metal. It will run on vSphere, the VMware product, right? And so if you're using a Windows machine and don't want to install a whole bunch of Linux boxes, there is some options there. In that regard, right? And again, we're pushing the Red Hat team a bit to help us through some of this, right? And also in sizing, because sometimes this thing can seem quite monstrous, right? And it really shouldn't be that big. And so we've been dabbling on what they call single node deployments. Red Hat is too. They're supposed to have something out at they're telling me the end of the year, but hey, I'm not a Red Hat person. But we've been working with them to try to get some smaller footprints out there and that kind of thing. So and understanding that what our client base is used to and in need of. Right.
All right, one last question and then we're out of time. Is it true that 8.5.8.6 will use Java 11? So right now on 8.4, where are we going with that?
Right, so we have certainly had conversations about Java 11, but moving the EAM bit of the suite to Java 11 is not a simple task. There's a lot of changes, a lot of stuff to work with. So we're going to start looking into Java 11, but it probably won't officially be supported for maybe the early next year, maybe by that time. Yeah, maybe, depending on how fast we can get started and get people pulled off. And, because while we're doing that, obviously we're not doing something else.
Right.
It will not be an 8.5, I can tell you that now, because our D-cut for 8.5 is like this week. Right, and we're quarterly, so 3 months from now, probably not. So probably not 8.5 or 8.6, probably more of an 8 or an 8.9, something like that.
Good enough.
Yeah.
All right, Steve. Well, we're right at the 2:30 mark. So thanks so much for your time today. Lots of great information, and we appreciate everybody joining us. We will make this recording available on our website and YouTube channel. So feel free to log back in and watch it again. And stay tuned for the next series of webinars and chats that we'll be hosting. Alex, back over to you.
Great. Amy, Steve, thank you so much. And as Amy said, we're getting ready to kick off our summer Maximo series. So save the date for July 13th. We'll be talking all about KPIs for your ROI, key performance indicators for better data-driven decisions. Again, thanks for joining us. Steve, Amy, fantastic information. Appreciate it. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.